So we have I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'm going to break you up into some smaller groups. And then when you come back, I'm going to ask you to reveal and to share what you have found in your smaller groups. So Lila, let's do, we got 17. I'm thinking they could probably, a little smaller would be 3, I think. We'll break them up into 3 groups. And are you ready? Um, and who was talking about the addiction and recovery, the connection part of that? But anyway, I appreciate saying that because I've heard, and I believe this more and more, that addiction isolates, right? One of the symptoms of addiction is complete isolation. And back in the late 80s, when I got into recovery, the end of my addiction was a lot of cocaine use. You know, I've been watching over pandemic, I watched a lot of Pablo Escobar stuff with Narcos and all that. I said, I was doing that cocaine right there. You know, I'm like losing my mind. But anyway, so I was watching that, but there was an ad where literally the guy was in the cocaine vial. You know, that's what they showed. It was like Drug-Free America or something. And that was me at the end of my addiction. I was so isolated and walled off. And then I realized that the antidote to addiction was connection.
Yes.
And I found that in the rooms of recovery. When in 1987, I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and immediately saw people with light in their eyes. They were smiling, they were hugging each other, they were warm and kind. And I had no idea what that was. All I knew is that's what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt a connection the minute I walked into those rooms. So your first question in your small groups is I want you to answer this question. What is connection? And is emphasized with a capital I-S. What is the connection? What is it? Is everybody clear on what I'm asking you to do? And I'll give you about 10 minutes and we'll come back here and have a little discussion. Welcome back, welcome back. So your question was, what is the connection? Who would like to share with what you came up with? Jack, sure.
Okay, well, since we're room 1, I guess I'm programmed that way. The 4 of us had a really good 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us had a really good conversation. We could have talked for another whatever. But it started out with Jen talking about the bond that we share with mutual emotions. And then Al, when it relates to the look, the feel, the aura, the power of the connection, because we're all focused on one thing, a path to a better life, to change some of the old behaviors. And Virginia talked about the mental, physical, and spiritual part of that connection. And Richard got into the intimate connection and related it to the performers that do so well connecting with us. He used Bruce Springsteen and a couple other people that because they tell a story. And I think that relates to the connections that we get in our meetings, in our support groups, that we relate because we not only have the same disease, but we relate because they're sharing their experience, strength, and hope from their heart. And that moves me every time. When I learn how to shut up and listen at meetings, I started to learn. And he also elaborated a little bit about the real energy that comes from the group. Whoops, sorry. Am I over talking?
No, we just have to have other people mute, that's all.
Okay, so I get a little carried away, so pardon me. If you want me to shut up, just go time out. But we're drawn to that energy. And I think that's a connection, the unconditional love that I felt, and I think you all feel it too, when we walk in the rooms and there's something there we can't identify. And that to me is the unconditional love, because nobody expected me to do anything except for show up. And then kind of help me on my pathway to understand that I only have to do one thing at a time instead of fix everything, because I'm that type of self-centered, bullheaded, stubborn German that wants to fix it now. And that's not in the cards. Recovery is one day at a time. So good group. This is fantastic stuff. So thank you all who were in room number 1, Jen, Al, Virginia, and Richard.
Thank you, Jack. I have a German friend. I asked him what the square root of 81 was, and he said no. Just kidding. It's just a terrible joke. I know there are people that know me are just shaking their head. One more dad joke. Here we go. Craig and Tiffany, I don't know who raised your hand over there. What was your conversation like? What is the connection?
So connection, what is the connection? One of the things is good communication and understanding between the recovery coach and the recovery. Showing someone that, you're reliable, available, that you care. One of the things is, finding mutual interests. One of my things is food. And somebody else said, it's a good feeling, it's a feeling that you get when, there's safety and trust in that connection. Let's see, you get, exchange of energy, and it's motivational. You're there to support each other. So that's what we had.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hi, Mike, Rhoda, good to see you. Anybody else like to share about what was discussed? What is the connection? Mike, are you going to share? You unmuted.
Unmuted, good. Well,
Yeah.
Good morning. My teacher at this point, I'm on my 4th week of recovery coach training at Center for Human Development in West Springfield. I've been clean. I don't like to claim clean time I haven't earned, but I'm rapidly approaching 4 years. And I will say again, because relapse is definitely a part of my story. I had 9.5 years at one time. I'm very interested in, and I'm very excited to be able to find a way to give back and to help society. That's personal for my own recovery, but I know that I'm a good listener, and I suffer from extreme empathy, and I don't think I'm going to come across too many things I haven't already experienced myself. My bottom was low, and I'm just so grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to learn. And your organization is incredible, and I'm going to be starting with my first clients later in the week or early next week. And go team!
There you go. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to share about what is the connection?
I'll go for our group. There was 5 of us. We came up with a lot of people sharing the same thing. It's almost something that you can't describe as actual. It's a feeling. We came up with the words like it's spirit, it's relationship, it's love, it's finding a common ground, it's encouragement of different levels of connection, and then I have to just say it's when defecation hits the ventilation. Like that's that was a great way to put it. That Brian had mentioned. So sometimes it takes that to get there.
I had never heard that before, so I'm always learning from you guys. So this is where I want to go next, and you guys are on the right track, but I propose that the connection is simply love. Yes, I use the L word. Oftentimes when we think of love, we think of the romantic love, and we think of it in a certain ways. There's and I'm going to share my screen, and I wanted to, and I think what we want to talk about a little bit is love, because how many of you recently in the news have you heard people talking about hate? And haters are going to hate, and it's all about all these people who hate. How often have you heard in the media or on your social media feeds or whatever, have you talked about love? How often do you hear that? And even Martin Luther King told us that hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that, right? And so, did you know that there are many kinds and types of love? And so I'm going to go over 4 of them. You can Google 4 types of love, and they usually fall into 4 Greek words, really. And the first one is eros, which is romantic love, right? And eros is also short for erotic, erotica. So a lot of times people take that down the roads of sexuality, pornography, all that kind of stuff. So when we start to talk about L as the L word, it becomes a bad word, right? That's what we're talking about, that for some reason, romantic love, our society in particular likes to spin that into some kind of deviance, And I think that what the love that Sandy and I have together is this romantic love has matured and grown and evolved over the years. So that's the first type of love I want to talk about. The second one is storge, which is also family love or familial love. So it's what you feel towards your mother and father. And I'm saying all of these are perfect relationships, or brothers and sisters that are your siblings or your children. I'm always a big fan of what Don Coyhis had to say about people of different skin color. He said, no matter what the color of your suit, I can look into your eyes, and suit being the color of your skin. No matter the color of your suit, I can look into your eyes and see you love your children the same way I do. And so that was just always brilliant to me. And what he's talking about, loving your children, is storge love. It's family love. Another type of love is philia or philia. And we know the Philadelphia, right? It's the city of what? Brotherly love. And so that is like when you have your comrades in arms or someone you're connected to, you just have a natural love for your brother and or your sister. It's not romantic, it's not familial, it's brotherly. Everybody with me so far? You understand that, right? And then there's a 4th type of love that's often referred to, and you guys talked about it in spirit and all this, I was listening, is agape. Have you heard that word before? It's a Greek word for divine love, or like God's love, or the Creator's love, or a spirit love. I was with Willimantic yesterday, and John Schwartz talks about the original source, right? This is the agape love. These are all 4 major types of love. Anybody how many have seen this before? Raise your hands. How many have not seen this before? Raise your hands. Awesome. I love this kind of stuff when people, new stuff. So I originally was introduced this in Bible study, actually, but then you can just Google the 4 types of love and see it comes up everywhere. And it's and if we think about it and feel it, we can delineate some of the differences. Are there overlaps? Do things change? Of course they do. And it's not black and white. It's not like a firm boundary, but we can start to understand the differences. So what I would like you to talk about in your small groups for the next 10 minutes, any thoughts you have about these 4 types of love, and then also talk about what ones play a role in recovery coaching. So in general, we're going to talk about the 4 types of love, and then I want you to talk about which ones play a role, if any, or if all of them, or whatever, in recovery coaching. And then I'd like you to report out when I bring you back in 10 minutes. Is everybody clear on what I'm asking you to do? All right, we'll see you back here in 10. All right, so you talk about the 4 types of love and how they relate or how they're used in recovery coaching. Anybody care to share? Craig and Tiffany are quick with that hand raise over there. Except you muted yourself instead of unmuting yourself.
Oops.
Oops.
All right. I'm good at working on cars, not computers. So the four types of love, we said, agape, storge, and philia are more, I think, appropriate as far as our dealings with our recoveries and also just each other for the most part. Can eros happen? Yes, but as a recovery coach to a recovery, no. That's just ethically not acceptable, not a good thing. So I gave the example of my experience of meeting Dominic as a recovery in a hospital bed, that he came to me with brotherly, philia and agape love, which is now turned into storge, because he's one of my best friends right now. So that, my experience from, being a recovery to now being a family, that's been our relationship. So that's been an awesome, awesome thing. So with just the different types of love, though, it's just, accepting, remaining open to, someone's journey, and just unconditional, compassionate love with no ulterior motives.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Thank you. Who else? This is where somebody. Okay, Barry, then Mike.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we discussed. We kind of came up with it. All of them fit. And when we were, and for a while, we were a little apprehensive about the romantic love, but we meet recoveries that are in romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And, and having to be empathetic to their situation, we have to be able to understand that love too. You know what I mean? Like I think to me, agape covers them all. It filters down from them all. Like that connection, that energy that I get from that love to my God, or whatever you call it, higher power, is the love that I can share in each of those areas and kind of understand. So we kind of discussed, I don't know, it was just a different point of view about, the romantic love that is not between the recovery coach and the recovery. It's part of maybe the relationship could be, that relationship could be a part of the recoveries,
Mm-hmm.
area. It could be a reason. I mean, how many times have you met somebody that, one person is going in the other direction, one going in a different direction, and they're in love. So, and you can't discard that. You have to acknowledge that. So that's where we went with it.
I agree. Thank you. Mike.
Hi again. Like I said in my group, I believe that regardless of a name or a type of religion, I believe for me that my life experience has proven that it all entails love. And man, the world can sure use more of that right now. For me, I have a higher power. My higher power dwells inside of my spirit. My common sense and that feeling I get in my gut that tells me things are a bad idea, I try really hard to listen to those things today. I believe that the romantic love can come into play too, because I mean, I was married for 32 years. I know that relationships put a strain on recovery. I really am a firm believer that what I see in the rooms, fixing a feeling with a feeling way too soon never tends to work out and leaves people struggling in pain or in the middle of a relapse. I waited 3 years to even entertain the idea of going on a date because, I ruined my marriage behind my drug use. But I have a lot of life experience, and I'm counting on that to be coming into play for me. The love I feel for my fellows in the 12-step fellowship I attend it goes beyond words. we like just, I call it, we like go to places, we spend a week together, we rent this, we stay at this cabin, we go here, we do these different things, including conventions, and we just love on each other. And we listen to each other. And so I'm a good listener as well as someone who's hard to keep quiet sometimes. I have a zest for life again. 4 years ago, I didn't want to wake up. I was mad when I woke up, and I'm so grateful today to have this opportunity to be alive and to be clean and to give back. I'm excited to give back. Yes, my closed mind is widening, and it's going to be necessary for me to be successful as a coach, and just, it'll help me in all areas of my life. So I got to change some terminology. I was scared to believe that there could be anything else. That was just because I sold myself something. I bought in 100% because I was too scared not to.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Any other stuff? Oh, Brian D, what do you think about the love thing?
Yes, thanks, Phil. We had a great group, another good opportunity to get to know people. One thing we all agreed on, like all the others have stated, that this eros love, the romantic notion of love, really has no place in recovery coaching. And for those of us who might have some experience in 12-step fellowships, we see that getting in relationships or getting those wires crossed in early recovery is pretty commonplace. And so as a recovery coach, I want to be vigilant in this area and be very sensitive when we're trying to help someone. It was also said, Nicolette talked a little bit about how we could bring in these other components. People may not have a family. We could provide a simulation of that. We also talked about how you can find the camaraderie or the brotherly love. I remember when I first came around, someone took me fishing. A few different guys took me fishing, those kinds of things, or a cup of coffee, or out to eat, or I don't know, whatever. Women knit. I don't know. You can come up with a million things. It was talked about how, from our very young age to now and our journey, the whole notion of love changes. And I heard it said at one point that lust can't wait to get, but love can't wait to give. And it's interesting because it's like connection. We can't really describe it, taste, touch, or feel it, but we know when we have it and we know when we don't. In some circles I travel in, Phil, they say, I can't keep what I have unless I give it away. I can't get more of what I have unless I give it away. And I can't give away what I don't have. And that love that you're talking about, this agape love, is where I think the moral force is, the power of the program of recovery, wherever we may find ourselves, and trying to help people move forward. When another individual, I remember my first experience, finally coming to the conclusion that this man who was trying to help me didn't want anything from me except my best interest. And he was willing to do just about anything as long as I was all in. And it changed me. It affected me. It left a deep mark upon my spirit. And I've never forgotten that. I've met other people along the way just like that. And that's the kind of person I want to be. I want to give that impression that I don't want anything from you. And it's not up to me whether you succeed or fail, but I just want what's best for you and want to help you along your journey, and not expect anything in return. So, boy, is it refreshing and great to be here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're like at 10:12, and I got a couple ideas I want to float by and see what you think about them. So what we're coming to the conclusion here is that and I'm just going to paraphrase what I've heard, is we think it's okay for recovery coaches to love recoverees. Would you agree with that? As long as we're kind of clear on what that love is. Now, would you hear that in your clinical or counselor training? Ada's like, nope, we would not hear that. And I think, and the only point I want to make with that, it's not right or wrong, it's just different, okay? And that's why I think this whole field of recovery coaching, peer support, if you will, is vastly different than clinical treatment. And that's because we're acknowledging that the healing power of love and what that connection can do for others. So let me throw this idea behind you. And I came from a middle-class family. My mom was a nurse. My dad was an engineer at Pratt & Whitney. They make airplane engines, jet engines. And so I was well cared for as a child. I mean, I had a house, I had all the material things, we had food on the table, and I know I'm blessed to have that experience. But I've come to the conclusion I was not well loved. I did not know how to let love in. Literally, when I was in college, Pink Floyd released The Wall. That's how old I am. And the guy in that rock opera was putting bricks in the wall, another brick in the wall, surrounding himself with bricks. And what was he protecting himself from? Well, in my story, I don't feel worthy of being loved. I was arrogant to think I didn't need your love. I just always turned away from love. And those were the bricks I put in my wall. And when I saw that first AA meeting where somebody cared for me and loved me, I started to remove a brick. And then it's been a whole process over the last 34 years of dismantling that wall I had built up around me in order to let love into me. You see, is also intimacy. And I was afraid to let anybody be intimate with anyone, not in the sexual sense, into me, you see, in the terms of transparency. If I take down all those bricks in my fortress, I feel vulnerable, right? But what it really is, the paradox, like we've discovered so many times in recovery, is there's great power in vulnerability. Brene Brown, right, does a whole TED talk on that. Brene Brown on vulnerability and the power behind it. So those are some of the conclusions that I think as recovery coaches, when we're working with people, recoveries, do you think they've been well loved a lot of times? And with the people that have turned to addiction? No. So part of our role is to love them. Anybody have any thoughts or comments about what I just shared? Yeah.
I've occasionally wondered when I'm on the phone with one of my recoveries in the office, and a number of them will end the conversation with, I love you. So of course I say I love you back, because I do, if I was going to freak out my fellow worker.
Oh my gosh, Ada, you radical, you rebel. Craig or Tiffany.
One of the things in my recovery is, learning to love myself again. And now that I'm able to better do that, I can spread my love to others, that brotherly love, and just, show people unconditional, compassion and love. So that's what I've been doing.
Well, thank you, Craig, because you just led into the next big question that I'm only going to give you a few minutes to talk about. Can you love yourself? Maybe I'm not going to give it. So we'll just keep it in the big group because we're small enough. Can you love yourself? Is it a yes or a no question?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I've been working on for my entire recovery.
Same. It's probably the hardest thing.
is to learn how to love yourself. In my opinion, for myself. I can only speak for myself.
Okay, so last time we talked about the soul and the soul's energy, and it being, I've come to the conclusion that the soul's energy is really love also, right? And I'm just talking for me, for you guys to consider. So when I talked about letting love in, it was like me plugging my iPhone battery into an electric socket. How do I recharge my soul? If I could have loved myself all these years, I would have recharged my own battery. I couldn't do it. I've come to the conclusion, and you guys can wrestle with this back and forth, that I cannot love myself. I can only accept the love of others or a higher power to fill my battery. Oftentimes, I think, at least I did, I always got the terms love and care confused, that I've learned to care for myself, that I've learned to take better care of myself in order to be stronger, to let the love of, for me, agape love fill me, brotherly love fill me, family love fill me, and romantic love fill me. So that's just my conclusion, that I can't recharge my own battery. Rita, you have your hand up.
Yes.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm grateful to be here, Phil. I'm sorry I was late. Phil, you had come down to the center and we had this conversation. I think for me, and so I grapple with this question because, that's what he does. He gets under my skin and gets me thinking about this stuff. But, in a lot of ways, I agree because I think if I could have, I would have. But what I did find, what I was able to do was I gave to the world what I wish I could have had growing up. So I never felt heard. So I became a really good listener. Or I never felt love. So I just lavished love on people in all sorts of ways. So for me, I think that enabled me by doing that and being able to like how I felt at the end of those days of where I was giving freely to others. I was able to treat myself better, and I was able to take better care of myself. And do self-care things, which is a reflection of me trying to learn to love myself. So can I actually love myself? I'm not really sure, but self-care relates to self-love. So that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Brian D, then we'll go to Barry.
Yeah. Thanks, Phil. Boy, what a thought-provoking set of questions you got here. I have thought in the past that hope is very much like that. Hope for me is a little bit like catching a cold. I never catch a cold when I'm at home by myself, isolated. It's only when I go out among other people that I am able to catch that cold. And hope is very much like that. I sitting home, isolating, never get hopeful. It's only when I seem to relate to my higher power on a vertical or relate to other people on a horizontal. So I think you're absolutely right, Phil. I'm not sure I can love myself. It seems to be something I need to get from outside myself. And in order to have enough for other people, I need to be in an active process of recharging that battery of love. So great question, great thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, Barry.
Thanks. Phil, I'm like you. I didn't allow people to love me. I think I had the fear that I wouldn't be loved. You know what I mean? I think that was part of the problem. I didn't never want to be vulnerable enough to be loved. I kept myself guarded and protected. But I think that I learned how to love myself by learning how to be vulnerable and intimate and all those words that I didn't like. They sound weak. They sound weak, you know what I mean? And that's what love is when you allow people in, you allow other people's energy to connect with your energy. And I was afraid of that. I was afraid that I was different, I wasn't enough and all that stuff, But when I got in recovery, I started to learn to allow people to love me by letting them in. And and I think I love myself, but I had to learn how to love myself. I thought loving myself, my version of loving myself was getting high as possible, and then I found out that that wasn't loving myself, that was hurting myself. So I had to learn how to love myself, and I got that from other people, take help, allow people to be your friend, be a good friend, all that stuff. That's how I learned how to start loving me.
Yeah. Thank you, Barry. Alvin.
Thanks, Barry.
Yeah, for me, very much similar to what Barry just shared. It took a lot of time for me to accept love. I like your analogy, Phil, about the wall. I too related to that masterpiece of a release by Pink Floyd. And yeah, I was that little doll in the corner with the wall against my back, and as I grew older, the wall just went higher and higher. And with the type of love I had around me, I don't know if I would describe it as love, but the relations, I just never knew how to function in a loving environment, because it just wasn't what I was exposed to growing up. And I think on the spiritual plane, we are all vessels of reception, receiving the Creator's love. And it takes a lot of practice for me personally to give and be vulnerable, and allow those connections to happen. But I feel like, in terms of where I am today, I'm in a good place, and I do feel I really allow those connections to happen, because it's pretty much daily for me whenever I'm connecting with a new individual, either seeking recovery or seeking to get back into the workplace in a recovery job. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Alvin. Good to hear that. Good to hear from you. We talk about being a receptor or receiving like agape love. And there is actually a physical thing you can do to receive God's love. Anybody know what it is? Agape love? Two things. It's breath work. You can breathe it in. But the other one is to stand like this. Have you ever stood outside in the creation with your arms extended, like on a beach, on a rock, on a mountaintop, on a tree branch? No, just kidding. I haven't done that yet. But if you do that, people that do that, so there's a difference, right? If I'm curled up like this and have my hands, I'm not receptive. If you're open like this, you're vulnerable, you're wide open. Practice it sometime. I mean, I went to the Orca cleanup, Ocean Recovery Community Alliance. We did a beach cleanup on Point Judith. And I drove into the parking lot, and there's this little mound, like a little hill, a lookout place. And there's a guy standing up there like this. And I thought it was Orca Kevin just messing with me, but no, it was just some random dude was standing up there into the wind with his arms wide open, receiving whatever that is, however you want to frame that out. So there are ways to do that. Also, I think the things that we talked about last time, about the things we love to do, think about that. Those are things that fill our souls. They recharge our batteries so that we're able to give back. I find that when I'm in nature, when I'm listening to music, when I listen to praise music sometimes, but I also, somebody talked about watching somebody do things that they're really good at. I love excellence. I think that feeds my soul to watch somebody do something they're excellent at, whether it's somebody that's worked at a burritos restaurant for like 30 years and never watch them make a burrito or make the salsa or something. I'm like, oh my God, or a first mate on a ship that cleans a fish in like 7 seconds perfectly. I'm like, how'd you do that? So any thoughts about, any wrapping up thoughts from the last couple of minutes that anybody would like to share with the group? Any takeaways, epiphanies, comments, questions? So I encourage you, yeah, go ahead, Richard. Great.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, Phil, you mentioned a little while ago, Brene Brown's TED Talk, and maybe a lot of you have seen it or haven't, or it's been a while. In the last 40 hours, I happened to watch both of her TED Talks on vulnerability and shame, and I took notes, and I actually listened to it on the treadmill, then I watched it again, and I've got 11 pages of notes from just one of them. I really took my time. So I highly recommend, if you could find the time the next few days, I think everyone won't regret taking another look at the work she did and what she shared, because it has a lot to do with some of what we've talked about today. So I just wanted to mention that.
Great.
Yeah, I just put the name, so in case you didn't quite get it, in the chat, and you're able to just Google Brene Brown and vulnerability and it'll come up. It's been seen tens of millions of times. Well, the other thing I encourage you to do, I give you a mini assignment, is to sometime soon go outside and stand with your arms open wide, what that feels like, and then have a courageous conversation. Talk to other people about love. Instead of talking about hate, get their ideas about what they think about love. Can we agree to do that? At least try to. All right, well, thank you. I enjoyed our session very, very much. And we will see you, whatever this is, the fourth Wednesday of the month at 9 o'clock. Think about a pet peeve, because that's what kind of going to lead us into next month's session. All right, take care, everybody. Thank you.